I'm going to be exactly who I am, not who I think I have to be. Because when you do that, you start to realize, like, hey, the person that I was being was not really serving my community. It wasn't really serving the people around me.
Drop it.
Hi, my name's Candace,
And I'm Victor,
and this is Social Media Made Me Do It IRL.
where we inspire real lessons. In this video, we're getting straight into it. We're going to talk about the ego and how the ego is not your amigo.
Nope.
The ego tends to be an issue that I think sets us back for a lot of things. I think that we need to first understand what the ego is and how it's getting in the way and how it's interfering with our success. I think that from what I understand and my experiences with the ego is that we try to kind of live up to this social status, because we all want to be accepted. We want to feel like we're liked and we're a part of a community or a part of something. And based on the way we see the world and based on who we want to be accepted by, we live up to this kind of standard that we think would be accepted by whoever we're trying to get attention from.
Yeah.
When really we have to look within, right?
I agree with that 100%. I feel like we all know, right? I'm a reflection of you and you're a reflection of me. And when your ego steps into the picture, it's separating yourself from everyone else around you, and it's just about you. You don't care about what the other people that are in your surroundings feel like. You only care about yourself because, as Victor mentioned, you're living up to this expectation of what you think life is, what you think your situation is, rather than what it really truly is.
Right. I think that we need to kind of take a step back and maybe cultivate a little humility with ourselves and kind of be vulnerable in a sense, like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be exactly who I am, not who I think I have to be. Because when you do that, you start to realize, in fact, it was affecting everything around me. And maybe this is why I feel so alone and so scared and so unfulfilled and so behind, because I'm trying too hard to fit this mold of who I think I need to be. And it's like, yo, who you need to be is exactly who you are. Stop trying to be something else. Just be you.
And I think that's when the self-awareness part kind of kicks in, and it's like, if you're aware of what you're doing, then you have the power to shift it. You can change what's going on. But I think a lot of times when people are ego driven, because the ego is not your amigo, we don't realize that as situations are happening, because our ego is right here. Our ego is right here sitting on your shoulder beside you, and it's not going to say, because we know the ego doesn't talk, the ego is not going to say, hey, Candace, that's not right. It's going to say, do that. Doesn't matter what Victor's doing. If you guys are doing two different things, but you're trying to get to the same success destination, well, if you're trying to compete with him, your ego's going to step in. It's almost like when you're in a sport and you're in competition, your ego is stepping in. You want to make sure you're the best. You want to make sure you're number one. And I think that if we continue to live our life ego-driven, is when things start to get more difficult for us. I think that we're starting to compete with not only people around us, but then ourselves as well internally.
Right. Because when we go home at night and we have to sit with ourselves before bed, and all these thoughts are floating through our minds of why things aren't going right and why things are the way they are, this is happening because you're not ever really processing what's going on in the first place.
So I've noticed in my life now, and even back when I used to work at a job, that in a job-like setting, there would be managers that would be put on into a new role, and they would be very ego-driven, right? Because they're seeking out approval from maybe the higher-ups to say, okay, you're doing well, you're doing good, keep going. And while they're acting like that, the people who are working underneath them are getting treated like shit. They're getting treated like they're not worthy, that they don't belong, that they're not doing good enough. And I've noticed, especially in, I want to say, service-based industries and entrepreneurs, a lot of that seems to happen, that the ego is always at the top. Whoever's at the top seems to have the ego. And I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying maybe that could be a limiting belief that I believe to be true. But from what I notice, a lot of people who are high in success tend to have egos because that's exactly what's gotten them to where they're at.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. I can definitely remember some experiences in my life. I remember, this is kind of dating way back, but when I used to work for Dunkin' Donuts,
Dirty face.
um,
Telling you.
yeah, I had a manager who was very ego driven. Uh, I don't know, maybe they were getting appraised from the higher ups that they were doing a great job and to keep up whatever they were doing, because they never changed. They stayed that way throughout the whole time. And that's when I finally ended up quitting and all that stuff. But it was just very like, oh, just very turn offy. I don't know. I think that people don't even realize that it's happening either. I don't even think people realize that their ego is what's driving them, and the ego is what's causing the problems, and the ego is what's keeping them behind in a way. Because are you really truly happy? Are you true? I feel like if you're really truly happy and you're living a life that's truly fulfilling to yourself, you're going to come from a place with humility. You're going to come from a place of love and understanding and empathy. I think that you're going to cultivate those very qualities that you need to be a good human, and the ego isn't going to get in the way.
Nope.
But that's where all the problems come in. The problems come from the ego, because you think you have to be a certain way. You think you have to be held on to a certain standard. You think that you matter more than the next. And if you see someone doing better than you based on your own perception, you try to find a way to compete, to be better, to do better, to feel better. But really, you end up not feeling better. You end up not doing better, and you end up staying behind. So it's like, is it really serving you?
Facts.
Is it really serving you?
Spot on. If you receive that message, drop it in the comments of this video. If you just received that message, drop it in the comments, because what you said is spot on.
I also think too, I think this video can serve those who are feeling the heat from other people around them who are ego driven. Because if you're involved with people who live their life based on their ego, it's going to really affect you, the person on the opposite end. You're thinking now that you're not good enough. Now you're thinking that you're feeling fearful. Now you're feeling like you have to like almost obey or in some sense or way. And I think that you need to, it starts with awareness in both ends, whether you're the person who is the ego driven person or whether you're the opposite or on the opposite end. I think you need to have that self-awareness that, hey, this is not me. This has to do everything with them. I noticed that this is ego-driven behavior. I don't have to take it to my heart. This is not true. I create my truth. So I think that that's very important to understand. The ego is just something we create. I think it's super important. And we can go on forever and talk about the ego. And we maybe will in another video. You let us know what you think about this video. You let us know if you have been dealing with someone who lets the ego get in their way, or is it you? Are you struggling with your ego? Is it getting in your way, and is it setting you back? Let us know.
Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to click the subscribe button and the bell for notifications for when we drop our next video. And I absolutely love this topic, and I hope that it resonated with you. It's really gave me some clarity on what the ego really truly is and how you can overcome that egotistic thought that's popping up in your head when you're in certain situations.
And definitely resonated with me. Hope it resonates with you too. So until next time, let's grow together.